Okay, psychology students, we're starting week 19 and you're moving away from learning and into development, which is kind of interesting because we think about how much we learn as we're developing, right? But we're remembering how psychologists use that term learning, right? Classical conditioning, operant conditioning, and observational learning. And in development, we're going to kind of talk about, we really are going to kind of talk about how, yes, and don't pay attention to all of this, but I'm looking at these things. So in development, we really focus, we come back to this nature nurture. So we've had this kind of theme all year where we're looking at how much is our genetic inheritance, our nature, and how much does experience change our development, right? We're also talking about stability and change. So what parts of us change and what parts stay the same, right? I know it's kind of, maybe talk to your parents or grandparents about this, but as I age, there's parts of me that really remember my child self and my adolescent self, right? That there's parts of me that have stayed the same through those stages and changed. And then we're also going to really look at continuity and stages. So where is development really gradual and where is it continuous, right? And so as we go through this, we're going to talk about, when we talk about development, we're going to first start with how do we study development? How do we answer those questions I was talking about? And we need to bring in cross-sectional and longitudinal studies. We're going to see some different studies. And then we're going to look at prenatal development, right? What happens from conception till the baby is born, and then in that first year of life with the motor development. We're also going to look at cognitive development, and we're going to focus on Piaget and Vygotsky's theories. You're going to look at social development, which is Erikson's theories, but we're also going to talk here about parenting styles, right? And we get to classify your parents. We're going to move to moral development, which is Kohlberg and Gilligan. They kind of said, how do we develop this idea of right and wrong? And then we're going to go from aging. So how do we move from adolescence to kind of early adulthood to late adulthood? All right, and you can kind of see I like this picture very much. This was a school teacher who wore the same outfit every day for 40 years in a row of pictures. So you kind of can see him from a young man into an old man. And I always joke with my children, or maybe it's not so much a joke, but I'm talking to them about how, you only get to be a baby for a very short while, and then you get to be a child for maybe a little bit longer. And then their adolescence is, I don't know, maybe it's getting bigger all of the time, I guess, but look at how long it is being an adult, right? The adulting is very long, and so I'm always telling my kids to not race to becoming an adult. All right, so what are we kind of doing this week? In a second, I'm going to bring up the unit project because this is something you want to know what's going on with it, and then you're going to work on it each week. Like I said, you're going to focus on how do developmental psychologists do their research. You're going to focus on the prenatal and then motor development. Then you're going to have one day for Piaget and one day for Vygotsky, and then you're going to kind of work on this project. So this project is kind of ongoing through these 3 weeks. And I like to think this is a timeline of your life, or maybe even something you'll think of as putting together in almost like a time capsule, something you can look at 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and to kind of see who you thought you were at this time right now. So you can use any sort of web-based format. Don't pay for anything. I know there's a free version of Prezi, a free version of Canvas. These are just suggestions my other students have given me, so I put them in here. If you have something you like to use, you can. I'm not limiting you at all in terms of how you do this. I think PowerPoint is not very interesting for it, but if that's really what you wanted to use, I'm okay with that. You can use photos, videos, audios, artwork. The format is very, very open. All right, what I want to see is that you know the theories of Piaget, Kohlberg, and Erikson, and other kind of ideas as we go through the unit. And again, I'm just stressing that you can't work on this starting on day 1, but you can start to work on it by the end of the week. All right, so you got a title, your beginning, right? So where and when were you born? Who are your parents? What culture were you born into? How does that affect your development? Do you have brothers and sisters? What are the circumstances at your beginning and how significant they are to your life, right? There's many people who say if you think about your first memory, that it kind of speaks about you because you remembered that for a reason. So maybe you think about your first memories. All right. And then so we're going to do 0 to 5 and 5 to 10, and then it's going to go to the decades. All right. And you're going to live to be the ripe old age of 90. Right. You can go later if you want to go higher, you can, but you don't have to. And I know that from 0 to 0, there's a certain part you don't remember that well, but focus on what you do remember. And I understand that after your current age right now, everything is going to be an imagination, and that's okay. Like, that's what kind of makes this fun, is you're going to be imagining what you think your life can be like, and putting in what you're learning about development as you go. All right, so there's some other questions for you consider and what you must put in for each of the decades. All right, again, I am super open-ended with how you do this project. I want it to be fun. I want it to be interesting. I want to see that you're learning what you're learning in the unit, but I don't want to show you exactly what other people do, because when I do that, I get the same project over and over again. Not fun. So I want you to be creative. Enjoy this. If you get stuck on something, know that I'm always here to help you. All right, so that is week 19, and you can see you're going to be working on this project for week 20 and week 21. All right, so into January. You have plenty of time. I think I put a due date here. The development project's due February 5th, hopefully, but you have till the end of the week. So any questions, let me know, and have a really good week. Thank you.